So today we'll take a look at the memory system from Stochastic Telegraph. This collection of modules lets you build your own looping system, great for ambient, glitch, and adding texture. There is a lot to go through, but we will take this step by step. There are timestamp links in the description if you want to skip to a certain section in the video. This collection is available for free, but please consider supporting the developer. And let's start with the basics. So the main module in this collection is memory. By itself, it will not really do anything, but this is the brains of this system. And to have a basic looping recording setup, we need at least two more modules. So the first one is called embellish, and the second one is called ruminate. Now they work as expander modules, so they have to be on the right side of the memory module. If I take embellish to the right side of it, you can see the light turned on. If I take ruminate to the right, again, you see there is another light. This indicates that the modules are now connected. Now embellish will allow us to record audio, and ruminate will allow us to play back the recording. Now there's another module that can help us to see what's going on, and it's called depict, this one here. Here we can see the record head and the play head, right? And again, it has to be on the right of this system. You can see the light here turns on. So I have here plats that I can play with my keyboard. Right, I will send this to embellish. Again, embellish is the module that records the audio. I have here left and right inputs. And again, from ruminate, we will hear back the recording. So this I will send to the output. And now on memory, I can set, let me just zoom to fit here. I can set the recording length, right? We have here the length. By default, it's set to 15 seconds, but you can change it. It goes up to 1,000 seconds even. Right, so you set it by seconds. I'm going to set it to about 5. And then you can see it's written there, takes effect on next reset. So when you change the length, you have to reset memory, and only then the length will actually change. Right now I can hit record and record something, and you will see here on depict, you will see here the recording head starts moving. Right, so now we recorded 5 seconds of audio, and then we can play it back with ruminate. And you can see we have here a blue light. This represents the blue playhead. Right, and of course here we can change the playback speed and the direction. Right, so now it's set to 1, which is the original speed. But negative values will give us reverse. So if I have -1, it will play in reverse, and something like 0.5, so -0.5 will give us an octave down, or half speed and reverse. Right, now the fun thing is we can have multiple playheads, right? So I can add even another ruminate. Right, and again, it has to be on the right of the module. So you can see now it has a yellow light, and this will be the yellow playhead, right? So I can play it, and maybe have this play 2 octaves down, right? So 2 octaves will be 0.25. And of course, I have to connect this also to the output. Right, so now we have 2 playheads. Of course, I can add more. We'll see more examples in a second. But this is the basic idea of how this system works. You can set the recording length, record audio, and then use multiple playheads to play back this audio in various speeds. Something you might want to try early on is sound on sound, basically recording the output while adding new material. Here I have the VCO unit. Again, I can play it with my keyboard. Right, so I will record something. Right, so we have now this loop recorded. Now if I hit record again, it will basically overwrite the audio with silence, or again with new audio. Right, but we can use the outputs of embellish to route the recording back into itself and have a sort of a sound on sound. Now for this we need a few things. We need a mixer. I'm going to use the VCA Mix Stereo from Venom. Right, the sound that you want to record, in my case, again, it's the VCO unit, will go first to the mixer and then the mix output back to embellish. And then here on embellish, we have stereo outputs that we can use, again, to have embellish record itself. So this will go to the mixer, and now we have a sort of a feedback loop, right? The mixer goes to embellish goes to the mixer, and again it will record itself and it will not replace the audio with silence. So now I can just leave record on all the time and record something. Right, and now it will just continue recording itself and it will not remove the audio. Right, it will not replace it. And of course now we can also overdub and record things on top. Right, so this is great also for overdubbing. Right, now I have here another playhead. I'm going to play. This is the yellow one. I will let it play, let's say, an octave down. So again, 0.5. Right, we have here also on Ruminate bounce control. This will set a sort of a ping pong for the playhead, so it will play forward and then in reverse. Right, again, this is the yellow one. You see now it goes forward. And now it will go in reverse. Right, we can even set the recording to reverse or also here bounce, which can also be interesting. Right, so again, it will bounce back and forth. Or just reverse. Right, and again I can overdub things. Right, so this is also interesting. Now another thing we can do here is process the audio before it goes back to the recording. So for example, I can use a low pass filter. Right, here I have a stereo low pass filter with the Surge XT. So before it goes to the mixer from embellish, right, from the recording, before it goes to the mixer, it will go first to the filter. Maybe take the level a bit down, open the filter a bit, right? This is a low pass filter and this will go now back to the mixer, and now the recording will become darker and darker. Right? Because now we record it back through a low pass filter. Right? So you can even add effects to this. Maybe the level is a bit too down here. Right, so you can use this also as a nice effect. I have here a simple rhythm just for the context here. This works really well for generative patches. Here I have a simple sequence with slips and the FM operator. It will sound like this. And I have here the memory system set up with 4 playheads, so 4 Ruminate modules. Right, so in this case I will just activate the recording and leave it on. Since the sequence has variation to it, also the recording will change. Now I have one Ruminate here playing at half speed. Then another one playing half speed in reverse. You can see this is the yellow playhead. And another one playing quarter speed. Right, and again, since the recording is always on, it will play back also the changes in notes. I have here another ruminate set to play the recording at double speed, and it's set to bounce, so it will bounce back and forth. This is the green playhead. Right, but in this case I'm going to use probability to turn it on and off. I have here chances from count modula that will add probability in this case to the clock. So I can use this to turn the playback on and off. There is a gate input here that we can use. Right, so it just adds a lot of textures and more layers. If I take it off, this is the original sequence. Right, and now with the memory system. Right, so again it adds textures, makes the sound a bit more interesting. Now we can also modulate the position of the playback head. And actually, before I show you this, we can load samples instead of recording audio. So on memory, if I right click it, you can see we have load and we have save also. So you don't have just to use it as a live looper, you can also load samples. There are also load and save ports here that you can use. They will work with something that's called tipsy text, I believe. There are also two modules from the same collection that will allow you to do this. This is way over my head, but you can explore this if you want. You can even have multiple memory modules in your patch, each with a different sample, and just switch between them, which is great for live performances, for example. But for now, what I have here a guitar sample. Right, and now if I zoom in a bit here, we have a few ways of changing the position of the playhead. So for example, we can do this manually with the adjust. Right, in the right click menu there is an option fade on move. If you turn it off, you get a sort of a scrub effect. Right, so this can also be interesting. In my case, I'm going to turn it on. There is also the initial knob here. This will change the initial position when you load a patch. It's written also initial position when loading a patch. Right, so next time you load a patch, you can choose the initial position of the playhead. And we have also the set input, and this one allows us to change the position of the playhead externally with external voltage. So here I have random modulation that I'm going to use. Right, and you can see the playhead jumps. Right, I have here another player that will play in reverse. Also this I will modulate. Right, so also like this you can add some variation. And another thing we have here on Ruminate is the current output. This will give us the position in voltage, the position of the playheads in voltage. So if I send this to the scope that I have here, you can see according to where the playhead is, right, we will get a representation in amount of voltage. Right, and this is great for example, for scanning through sequences. So I'm going to use both playheads here. And I have two step sequences from Sequencel. You can drive them with a clock, but I have also a CV mode, as you can see, so you can also drive them or scan through them with CV, and this is exactly what I will do now. They are sequencing two different VCOs, going through a filter, some delay. There's another interesting module in this collection. It's called Fixation, that gives us micro looping, which is great for granular textures and glitch. Just like the other modules, this one is also an expander, right? So also it has to be on the right of the other modules. For now, I have here a simple drum loop loaded. Right, this I'm playing with Ruminate, of course. But now on Fixation, we have three different modes or styles with this style control. The first one will work with a clock or trigger signal. With each trigger, the playback will reset itself. Right, so we have here a clock input. I'm just going to use an LFO for now. Right, hit play. Right, and then now you can see it will reset with each of the clocks and we can change the position. Right, and if I use a faster clock, I can get something a bit more granular. And of course I can scan through the position externally, so if I use something like an LFO, we get time stretching. Right, so this was the first mode. Now the second mode, it's called always play. This will always play the recording according to the length and position. So basically it has an internal clock, right? And again, we can scan through it and change the length. Right, and also here we can choose or use an external control to scan through the buffer. And then in the third mode, we also need a clock or a trigger, but in this case, it will work with this count control that will act as a sort of a burst generator. So in this case, I will use push, just so I can trigger it once. Right, again, the length and position we can change, but now we have the count. For now, it's set to 1. So when I trigger it, it will just trigger one cycle, but I can go, for example, to 5, and then I trigger it, and it will play a burst of 5 cycles. Right, and again, this can be shorter. Right? Something like this. Right, and of course, this can go quite high here. Right, and again, I can change the loop. Oh, maybe the other one. Right, so now it will play a burst of 95 bursts, sort of. So if you want to create bursts of sort of grains, even if you will, depends on the length. Right, you can use the third mode, and then with the count you set the number of triggers or number of cycles inside this burst. So here I have some rhythmic chords. I have harmony 2, sequencing the VCO unit polyphonically, so I get chords, right, and I'm gating these chords with a trigger sequencer. This will sound like this. Right, now, of course, also with Fixation, we can have multiple instances. So here I have, let me take this down, I have here 3 Fixation modules, right? So I can have 3 different sort of granular playback heads. So first of all, I will start the recording. This is recording these chords, and I will just leave the recording on, so we always get something new. And I have all 3 Fixation modules set to the second or to the middle mode here, to always playing, right? Always play. So I can set, let me play the first one. Right, you can see this is the blue playhead. I can set a shorter length. Right, maybe something like this, and then modulate the position with a random voltage. I have here caudal from volt, which is a smooth random voltage generator. Right, so now this blue playhead is playing the same length, but it's just scanning through this sample or through this recording. I have here the second fixation set to play an octave down. This is the yellow one. In this case, I'm going to modulate both the position and the length. Right, and the last fixation is playing an octave up. This is the purple one, and again also here I will modulate the position and length. Right, so we get nice granular-like texture. Let me bring in the original sound. Right, now we can even take this result and record it into another setup, right, into another memory system. Here I'm doing exactly this, right, the mix, so all the fixation and the original signal are going to a new memory system to embellish. And then I have here Ruminate, it will play it an octave up with lots of reverb. Right, again, just for adding another layer, I have here some drums, gate sequencer sequencing the Octa drum machine from Nano, and a bass with kick all, some chorus, distortion. Fixation is also great for various glitch effects. Here I have a drum loop, again the gate sequencer sequencing Octa from Nano. Now I'm already sending this to a memory system here. I have it going to embellish for recording, right? So it continuously records the drums since there is a bit of variation, right? There will be also variation in the recording. And I have here two fixation modules. They are set to the third mode to count, right? So I will get these bursts of audio, and I will have one clocked or triggered with the same trigger that triggers the kick drum. I hold Control and Shift, so I can just take another cable. Right, so this will be triggered by the kick drum or the trigger that triggers the kick drum, and then another one with the trigger that triggers the snare. Right, and again we get bursts of, in this case, 12 cycles. And now I can add some modulation with random voltage. So here I have holder 8 from Sikocell, basically 8 random voltage generators. Again, I hold Control and Shift so I can take another cable. So I will have the kick drum or the trigger of the kick drum trigger 4 of them, and the trigger of the snare trigger the other 4. Right, and now I can start modulating, for example, the position of the playhead, right, the length. I can modulate also the speed, right, in this case also pitch, maybe not so much. And then also the panning on the mixer here, I have the pan expander, so I'm going to modulate also the panning of this playhead. And I will do the same to the other fixation with the snare, right, position, length, speed, again, not so much, and then panning. Right, so already we get nice glitches. Now this is going through plateau. I will bring it in, the reverb. Right, and plateau has here the clear function. Right, basically clearing the reverb. So I'm going to use again the same trigger I'm using to trigger the snare, holding Control and Shift. I get another cable and I connect this to the clear just to have a bit more, another rhythmic layer. Right, so you can hear the glitch we get with fixation. Here I have a bass, again, kick all, some chorus, some distortion, in this case with the Euclidean sequence. Right, and now this works also really well with melodic voices. So here I have, again, a simple sequence. Let me solo this for a second. A simple sequence with slips and plats. It will sound like this. Right, so this is the original sequence. Again, it has variation, so I have recording always on. Right, and I have here two fixation modules. If we listen to one, they are both set to always play. Right, so this is the first one. it's playing half speed, and the second one is playing double speed. Right, now Fixation has also a trigger output. Let me zoom in a bit. This will be an end of cycle output, right? Sends a trigger at the start of each play output, basically a sort of a end of cycle or start of cycle, never mind. But every time the cycle starts or ends, you get a trigger. So I will use this to trigger another random voltage generator and then modulate the length of each of them, right, again to get some variation. Right, so we get something a bit more glitchy. I will bring in the original sequence, and now I will use LFOs to bring these variations in and out, and also to modulate their panning. Right, again, so this works nicely with melodic stuff as well. Both Ruminate and Fixation have a volt per octave setting, so you can also sequence them with pitch. Here I have a cello sample with 4 Ruminate modules. This will be the original sample. I have on all 4 of them a use speed as volt per octave. In the right click menu I have this setting on. So now basically the speed input will be just like a volt per octave input, and I'm going to generate a chord. I have here a few Refton modules from Bog Audio, so I can just transpose, for example, the second voice, the third, and also the fourth, and we get a chord, right, with the 4 different playheads. I'm going to add some reverb to this. And again, this will work also with Fixation. Right here I have a violin sample, and I'm sequencing 2 Fixation modules, right, again through the speed input with 2-step sequences, right, so you can also sequence things. Again, just make sure to have use speed as volt per octave on. Right, so now this violin sample will be sequenced. Just for fun, I have here some lo-fi drums. Something fun you can try is using the memory system as a delay, and there are a few ways of doing this. So here I have the FM operator, just playing it again with my keyboard. So first of all, I will activate the recording and leave it always recording. And for now, I will have just one playhead. Right, so already we get one repeat. And the delay time will be the distance between the record head and the play head, right? So I can change this, make it longer. Right, or make it shorter. Right, so you can really play with this. But now, to get feedback, we can do something similar to what we did with sound on sound. So I have the FM operator going to a mixer, and from the mixer it goes to embellish, right? And again, as we've seen before in the sound of sound section, we have here outputs, stereo output that we can use to record the recording back into itself, right? If we have it as it is like this by default, it will just keep on repeating and will never fade out, right? It will be just like having feedback on the delay all the way up. But now we can change the level here of the second channel of the embellish going back into itself and start adding fade out, right? So controlling the feedback level basically. Right, so now with each cycle, the delay will be, or the repeats will be a bit softer and quieter. Right, and like this we get already a delay. Now of course we can have this a bit more interesting. You can add another playhead that will add an octave above. Right, so already it's not your normal delay. We can also set the recording to reverse, for example. Right, so now it will play back. It will be a sort of a reverse delay. Right, so this is the first way that you can do this, but now instead of recording the output from embellish, we can record the output, for example, from the second ruminate here, which is set an octave up, which means that with each cycle, the recording will be an octave up, and we get a sort of a, we will get a sort of a shimmer delay, if you will. The last thing I want to show you is Brainwash. This is another module in this collection, and it will allow you to record new audio and replace the older audio in the buffer completely. So let's say that I record something here. I have macro oscillator 2 oplets going to embellish. Right, so I have this recorded. But now let's say that I want to replace this recording completely at once without overdubbing and without replacing things live. I just want the audio completely different. I can use Brainwash instead of embellish. Just record something. And when I stop the recording, all the audio will completely at once change to a new audio. Right, so like this you can just replace audio with Brainwash instead of overdubbing or deleting it with silence. But that was it for today. Please go and explore this collection. It's so unique and inspiring. If you can, please consider supporting the developer. Thank you for watching. Cheers.